All right, third graders. Today we are working more on theme. If you haven't caught on to it, every week we do social issues. We do the same types of things. So each week we will do character traits. Each week we will do theme and so on. So this is our last week doing social issues. So today will be our last week touching on theme. All right, catching on to author's theme. Shh, Peach. Frank, the fisherman, has been trying for years to learn the secrets to catching the exclusive theme fish, but he just can't seem to catch on. Well, golly gee willikers, I got myself all tangled up in here. In order to catch a theme fish, I first have to understand what theme means. I am completely puzzled. Let's see if we can learn about it together. All right, theme. This is the definition. Theme is the moral, message, or lesson the author wants you to learn from the story. Here are some common themes. If you have a piece of paper, I would pause this and jot some of these down because this might help you in your assignment today. Courage, honesty, respect, friendship, kindness, perseverance, hope, equality, and love. Theme, and we've talked about this, but pay close attention. The author's theme is not always clearly stated. Many times you must think about what is implied. Implied means to use what the story tells you to figure out what lesson you are supposed to learn from it. The word implied is very similar to infer. You have to infer, you have to use the clues and the hints in the passage or in the story to figure it out. So use the clues in the story to understand what the author is trying to teach you. Evidence. Evidence is the facts within a story. Many times you will be asked to provide evidence in order to support the theme. Reread your story and look for situations or ideas that support the author's theme. Evidence will prove that the theme is correct. All right, we're going to go ahead and look at Paul. So here is Paul, the polar bear. He was ice fishing one day and caught so many fish he did not know what to do with them all. His neighbor Percy the penguin came by that afternoon complaining of being very hungry. When he asked Paul if he could spare a fish, Paul quickly replied, "Nope, I need all these fish for myself." Percy plodded away with a frown and an empty belly. What is the author's theme of this story? Well, it says that the author's theme is the importance of sharing. What I would have said was that sharing with others is good to do. Now, are those two equally the same? Yes. I just said mine in a different way. Okay? Now, what evidence supports that theme? Well, if we look at Paul, here he is in the picture. He's ice fishing. It said that he had caught so many fish, he didn't know what to do with them all. That tells me that he had plenty and he did not need them all. It also tells me that he's not being kind because when Percy asked and said that he was very hungry and asked if he could spare a fish, Paul said, "Nope." And so that tells me that he is not a kind person. And then Percy plodded away with a frown and an empty belly. How sad. He's very, very hungry. And Paul had plenty that he could have shared. He just chose not to. So the importance of sharing is what this theme is. Okay, let's move along. Here's the next one. Sarah invited Heather to her house to bake cookies, but little did she know what she was in for. First, Heather spilled flour all over the floor and didn't sweep it up. Then, Heather was using the mixer and splattered dough all over the cabinets. Sarah tried to be polite and ignore Heather's sloppy behavior. Then, Heather ate the cookies and dribbled crumbs all over the carpet. After that day, Sarah never invited Heather to her house again. So what is the author's theme of this story? Well, it says clean up after yourself. That's actually exactly what I would have said because that's what she should have done. What evidence supports that she should clean up after herself? Well, if you go to someone's house, especially if it's not yours, you need to even clean up more than you would normally do on your own. So it says she spilled flour all over the floor. She should have swept it up, but she didn't. She used the mixer and splattered dough on the cabinet. She should have wiped off the cabinets, but she didn't. And then when she's eating the cookies after she made them, she's spilling crumbs all over their carpet. She should have been eating in the kitchen and she should have been using a plate or eating over the sink. So you know that Sarah's never going to invite her back, which I don't blame her. She's very, very sloppy, and that is a rude, rude, rude behavior to not clean up after yourself. So all of that evidence supports that you should always clean up after yourself. Okay, the next slide. Brandon always loved the game of basketball. Once he was in high school, he wanted to try out for the basketball team. There was one problem. Brandon was very short. He wouldn't let the obstacle stop him from being a great basketball player. Each day he did extra practice and even had his dad take him to watch games to get pointers. When it came time for tryouts, Brandon proved himself. He then went on to be one of the best players on the team. So what is the author's theme of this story? They said to never give up. I said two different ones. I said never give up and always try to improve. Now, are those still the same? Yes, they are. I said mine just in a little bit different way. All right, what is our evidence that supports the theme? Well, it says that he loves the game. It says that he, each day he does extra practice. And then he even asks his dad to go watch games with him to get pointers. So I can tell that he is really trying. He's really pushing to be great. And it sounds like it ended up working out for him. All right, we have one more to do together. Here is Danny. Danny loved playing games with his friends, but absolutely hated losing. Danny would do whatever it took to win, even bend the rules and cheat. It wasn't long until his friends started to figure out that he was cheating. They asked him to stop and told him the games weren't fun when he cheated. Danny didn't listen. He continued to cheat whenever he could. After a while, no one wanted to play with Danny anymore. Danny may have won many games, but what was the cost? So what is the author's theme of this story? They said, cheaters never prosper. I know what that means, but you probably wouldn't use that word prosper. So I would have said, cheaters never win in the end. Okay, so it might seem like a great thing to start cheating and you might be winning and you're like, oh yes, I'm just going to keep going. But really in the end, it never works out. Okay, so I know this. So my evidence that supports my theme is that it cost him his friendship. So now he doesn't have his friends. His friends kept telling him, please don't cheat. They asked him not to cheat. He chose to not listen. It says Danny didn't listen, but he just continued to cheat. And then no one wanted to play with him anymore. So it says after a while, no one wanted to play with Danny anymore. So now he doesn't have any friends. So what would you rather do? I would say not cheat and still have my friends. And I would still want to play with them. Well, gosh, I think I found the theme fish. I have to make sure it's genuine. Let me make sure that I mean you know exactly what the theme is. Theme is the moral, message, or lesson from a story that the author wants you to learn. Oh no, you've got to help me. Do you remember what words go in these blanks? Well, I just gave it to you. Okay, and I'm pretty sure you probably would have guessed them anyway. So remember that moral, message, lesson, and theme are all synonyms of one another. They all mean the same thing. All right, do your best today. Look back in Google Classroom to see what you need to do for the rest of your reading assignment.